Call to order the Old Bridge Planning Board meeting for September 11th, 2018. If everybody will rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you just remain standing for a moment, Ann Miller, who was a member of this board and who's been active in the community for many, many, many years and is a wonderful, wonderful woman, passed away about a week and a half ago. So I'd like just a moment of silence to remember her. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by firmly posting in the municipal complex an announcement of the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the homeowners and community, and filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. Mr. Abbas?
Here.
Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Marakis?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Lenny?
Here.
Mr. Marucci?
Here.
Mr. Luca? Here. Chairman Cannon?
Here.
Ms. Carey?
Here.
Ms. Sawant?
Okay, we have the minutes for August 7th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. And the minutes for August 14th, 2018. Do I have a
I'll move it.
moved by Mr. Schmidt,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Marucci.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malakis?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Resolutions 11-18P, Woodhaven Village Phase 3. I have a motion.
I'll move it.
Who is that? Mr. Lauer?
Yes. I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. 15-18P, Old Bridge Investments LLC. Have a motion? Moved by Mr. Luca,
Second.
second by Mr. Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Escrow deficiency resolution for 56-16P, Woodhaven, is that for Woodhaven?
For Woodhaven, they have paid it, but the resolution, we're retroactively adopting the resolution, so we still need to adopt it.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Schmidt, second? Seconded by Mr. Luca. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbas?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malakis?
Abstain.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Okay, I just want to remind everybody that we're being televised and that the cameras will go off at 10, by which time I think we will be completed. Okay, we have application 16-18P, which is requesting a continuance to October 30th, 2018 without further notice and publication. Do we have to vote on that?
Yeah, let me just give a little more of a description.
Okay.
This is Eller ASAP Holding LLC. The property is on Cheesequake Road, Block 5001, Lot 13.22. Application for site plan and variances for a new warehouse building. And their notice was complete. We were ready to accept jurisdiction this evening, but they want to make some changes to the plans, so they're going to come back, and they're asking to be adjourned until October 30th. So as long as the board's okay with that, our secretary's indicated that date's available. Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to grant the continuance?
I'll move it.
Mr. Lauer?
Second.
Mr. Schmidt, roll call, please.
Mr. Abbas?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malakis?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci? Yes. Mr. Luca? Yes. Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Okay, application 20-18P, Gruco Academy, trading as the learning experience, minor site plan with C variances.
Good evening, Chairman Cannon, nice to see you, members of the board. David Himmelman for the applicant. And just want to give a sort of a brief opening statement so we sort of put the application into a little perspective. First, Ms. Carey, I just want to make sure that notices was appropriate and in order, and this board has jurisdiction to hear the application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. As the board is aware, the applicant tonight seeks a C bulk variance approval, and for the record, it's block 22100, lot 29.60, and that's on your tax map here in Old Bridge. The property is on Texas Road, 280 Texas Road, in the township. As you know, the applicant seeks approval for the installation and construction of a proposed LED digital sign, which will be located above the freestanding sign at the property. As your planner notes in her report, the applicant technically seeks two variances, one pertaining to the fact that the ordinance under Section 250-52G1 prohibits signs and advertising devices in all zoning districts that flash, blink, move, or simulate motion or have a scrolling text text that dwell time in less than 1 minute. The other is for the sign area, which is under Section 250-52D3, and the applicant will be prepared to discuss both of them. The site is located in the R120 zone. It's located in Texas Plaza, which is formerly Woodhaven Plaza, and as you know, that was part of the amended preliminary and final site plan approval granted in October of 2014 by this board, which permitted the 10,000 square foot daycare center and a 5,000 square foot outdoor play area that the learning experience currently operates out of. The board had previously approved the existing monument sign as part of the October 2014 site plan approval for the daycare center. The property is, as you also know, in the general development plan for the project known as Woodhaven Village, and is now zoned as PD. As I indicated, while there's no use variance that we're seeking tonight because the retail and daycare use is permitted, there are the two bulk variances that I mentioned, and under the municipal land use law, the applicant must show and demonstrate that the specific purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced by the deviation from the zoning requirements, and the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment or grant a variance to allow departure from your regulations. The variance sought specifically is a C2, which is the flexible C variance, and the applicant must show and demonstrate really three elements. One, that the variance is needed for the specific type of property. The proposed variances advances the purposes of the municipal land use law, which is your positive criteria, and the benefits of the deviation from local zoning ordinance resulting from the granting of the variance, which substantially outweigh any detriment, and of course that's your negative criteria. The applicant does have a professional planner who will demonstrate and testify as to the positive criteria, that the proposed signage will be more readily visible and will be safer than the existing sign itself. Also, our planner will note that the general welfare will be served by local businesses having a cost-effective means of advertising on the proposed sign. In addition, the applicant will testify that the variance relief will not adversely affect the value of the adjacent and nearby properties or will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Regarding the negative criteria, the applicant's planner will testify as to the two-prong test in a negative criteria analysis. One, that the proposed sign will not result in substantial detriment to the public welfare, in that it supplements a sign that already exists, which you will hear from the applicant is not visible from great distances. The location of the size of the sign, the applicant believes, is appropriate in terms of size and height. Moreover, the PD zone district allows for many commercial uses, and that this proposed sign will be compatible with those uses and is a tool that can be used and support other commercial uses in the PD zone. Regarding the second prong of the negative criteria, the applicant will testify the proposed sign will not result in a substantial detriment to the zone plan or master plan. And you will also hear testimony from the applicant's planner that because this is a school, that they are permitted to have certain signage, and we believe this falls within that criteria. The applicant has 3 witnesses. To my left, Jody Girani, who's the owner and director of the Learning Experience, and of course she'll testify on the need for the sign and how it relates to her operation. We have Bill Dorn, who is a professional architect, and he'll testify on the architectural plans for the proposed LED sign, including obviously the overall dimensions and the location of the sign. And finally, James Higgins, who's our planner, he will testify as to the justification for the bulk variance relief for the proposed sign. With that brief opening, I don't have any further statements at this point, but would ask if the board doesn't, if have questions of me, we can proceed with the applicant.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I
And state and spell your name for the record, please.
do. Jyoti Jurani, Jyoti, T as in Tom, I, Jurani, Jhurani.
Thank you.
Ronnie, good evening.
Thank you.
Now, it's my understanding is you currently own and operate the Learning Experience
Yes, I do.
facility on Texas Road, correct?
Yes,
Which
I
is the
do.
subject of this application, correct?
Yes.
Could you briefly describe for the board why you're seeking this approval and really the need for this type of signage for your business, if you
Sure.
would?
Definitely. So initially, we used to, when we started, there was a huge sign, which was a temporary sign, which actually stated, the Learning Experience is a childcare business for kids 6 weeks to 6 years. So initially, we had a temporary board which actually stated that childcare for 6 weeks to 6 years. When the temporary sign was removed, right now there is just a little board which is not visible from far, which says the Learning Experience, but it does not describe what kind of business we are. We are a childcare facility, what age group we promote. So when someone is driving past, they just pass our school and they cannot see that we are visible. So I wanted to bring in some kind of a LED signage along with our existing sign, which the planner would actually show, which could display that childcare facility 6 weeks to 6 years. That is one purpose of having this LED signage. And secondly, also we have weekend events or promotions where we host open houses or carnivals in the school in order to promote the school and bring the families in. So we could promote an event over there saying open house September 15, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So a simple message like that, when the people are driving by, they can actually see that we have an event in the area, and that will drive the people in. And it's for the benefit because we have kids in the building. So I feel that we are servicing the community by having the kids in our building. So these are the purpose what we feel that we should have an LED signage. One more thing,
Okay, go ahead.
if I'm so
Sure.
sorry.
That's all right.
One more thing we would like to serve is if there is a emergency in the area in Old Bridge, or we would definitely be willing to display a message for any emergencies which are in the area and service to the community, Old Bridge community, basically.
Now, let me just ask you a few additional questions. So right now, other than, there is a monument sign out
Yes.
front, correct?
Yes.
Is there any other signage on the building for the
No.
Learning Experience?
No, we don't have one.
Okay. So the only sign you have right now is the sign that...
The monument.
Of the monument, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of the, I guess, the nature of what the LED sign, how that will operate, will you have the ability as the owner and the operator to control the interval of the messaging?
Yes. The vendor who we have selected to get the signage from, the LED sign itself is a programmable device, so we could program it to what we want. And to the zoning, whatever the zoning division allows us, we will be able to program it as per the requirement from the zoning.
So, for
division.
example, you could program it from, say, 20 seconds to 2 minutes to scroll across, correct?
Yes, yes,
And that would be, and you'll have the ability to control that?
yes, absolutely.
Okay, and you'll also have the ability to control all the content, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, is it your understanding or is it your desire that there will be no other advertising to support any other businesses or anything? It'll be it'll be for the Learning Experience facility to promote your business, and if there are announcements you'd like to make or promotional items you'd like to address for the public or for your clients, that will be what the theme of the messaging will be, correct?
Absolutely. yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. The other thing I want to know is, will if for some reason the board places conditions on the type of advertising and similar restrictions, I presume that's something you would agree to, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. I don't have any further questions, Mr. Girani.
Okay, our planner?
So, apart from the freestanding sign which advertises the daycare, is there any other place where you have an advertise for the childcare? Like, I know this shopping center has 2 other monument signs. So, do you have a sign on any of those monument signs?
We don't at this point, but, and I have not approached them yet.
Okay, and
That's, right now the only monument and my building itself, if somebody looks at it, there's a name on it, but it still doesn't say what it is.
so the building does have a wall sign.
It's inside, the building on the top says learning experience, that's about it.
No, is it on the building facade, on the front facade, or?
The front of the building, but that's inside, right, that in the complex.
But is it on the,
It's
is it
on
on
the
the
face of the
physical
building.
wall on the outside? Can you see it from the outside?
Yeah, when you drive past,
You do see the wall sign?
that's inside the complex. Inside.
No, what I'm trying to ask is, the daycare is a standalone structure, correct?
Yeah,
Right?
so on top of the building.
Right,
yes,
right.
The learning experience sign is.
Okay, so, because I know you testified before that that's the monument sign is the only sign, so that's not true, right? There are 2 signs, one on the wall sign and one on the monument sign,
I think
correct?
she meant she meant either the monument sign
Oh,
or perhaps
okay.
the other sign that the landlord has.
I was just curious that I have not heard of a business who would not want to have a wall sign, so I was just curious,
no,
why
no,
do,
I
why
agree.
do you not have a wall sign? Okay.
But when you're driving, that's not visible.
Okay,
basically.
okay. And then
So,
the other thing is, you mentioned that the LED would display the age group.
Yes.
Will that be a scrolling text or will it be stationary? When you say age group 6 months to 6 years,
No,
is it?
It could be static, and then say if the board permits us for scrolling, we could say open house, say September 11th.
Right.
15th.
So, which means that if you want to advertise the age group, it could be stationary, and when you have an event, it could be a scrolling sign, correct?
We could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a must to have what age group we permit and say childcare 6 weeks to 6 years. That's a very important message which is missing, and our phone number is nowhere.
Okay. Because typically I have seen the open house, I do understand, or an event that occurs, I have seen that scrolling, but the age group, I haven't really seen it on a daycare. Like, I haven't seen it flash like that. So,
Flash, we can keep it static.
okay, that's it.
Even the phone number, we could keep it static. That's because there is nowhere where you can actually see the phone number. So the phone number is not there any of the boards.
And is there no other place where you could have the phone number and the age group advertised?
Another board probably that.
Because just to add a phone number or the age group, I find it a little hard that why do we need a digital sign? I do agree that if you have an event, open house and all that, Right. So for that, I do understand that you would need something that changes frequently, but the phone number and the age group is a constant feature of the business, right? So,
Instead of keeping adding another board and a scrolling sign for the event, it would be better to club it together and have, say, for example, 2 lines which are static, saying childcare facility, 6 weeks to 6 years, phone number, second line static, and then on the bottom I can have a 4th line which actually is promoting the event.
okay.
So you just combine it and do it all together in one sign on top of the existing sign, so it looks a complete sign instead of different places to promote this.
Right. I mean, I have a different opinion with this latter part you mentioned, the digital sign over the childcare, because I had mentioned in my memo, the childcare is the most important, like that's what you want to advertise. So why wouldn't that be on top and the LED at the bottom? Because that's just advertising the events. So, go ahead.
I think well, practically speaking, the monument sign's constructed.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think Woodhaven, or Atlantic Realty being the owner, I think they were okay with us proceeding with the concept of having the LED over the existing signage. Unfortunately, since the monument sign was approved as part of the 2014 approval, I think the landlord had some economic concerns about having to tear down the structure and redo it.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think that's the big reason.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, anybody from the board have any questions? Well, I do. I do think it's a lot of information. I mean, I understand why you need to advertise the age of the children, because the learning experience, it makes them more like a school as opposed to a daycare. But I guess I don't know why it has to be LED, because why can't you just add some kind of stationary sign that says, I don't understand why it has to have the LED feature to it.
The marketing part of it, because it keeps changing. So for example, this September 15th, we have an open house. Then
Yeah, I
we
understand for
have-
the special event thing, but it's for the age of and your phone number, they're going to be there
I think
permanently.
And I hear you, and I think what the applicant's suggesting is, let's make that a static feature, so that doesn't scroll. But other announcements, like if you're going to have open house or things, that would scroll underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because current sign is already there. To bring this down as, we were saying that to bring it down and rebuild, it's going to be a lot of things to
Right.
do just for one LED sign. So it's a great idea to just enhance the existing monument and put a LED sign on top, which can accomplish both the things which we are trying to accomplish over here.
But I think you had some concern about the height of the sign, right?
Yes. See, actually, what Chairwoman is trying to say is we understand the advertised part, but because the LED is 3 feet 8 inches or something like that, the total height of the sign is quite a lot too. So you have an 8 feet 8 inch sign. So is there a way you can restrict the message you're putting in? We understand the open house, the events that occur, but imagine every business wanting to put their phone number on a sign. So,
I guess the question is, the thought process was, if we're going ahead and put a sign of this structure, signage above the existing structure, it made sense to put the hours and the phone number, but that's not the critical component of this. Am I correct?
The
Jody?
phone number, you mean?
Yeah, or the entity, the name, or any of that. So
The
it's
name
really.
is already there.
No, I know, but I think the point here is you're looking to have certain notifications about open houses and things like that.
Mhm.
The part about your phone number, is that a critical component?
It's nice if you see a business and you see a phone number. Right now, it's
Yeah,
not
but-
there.
true.
It's
See,
on
but
that side.
look at it at the town's point of view. If every business is trying to flash their phone number,
No,
um,
I think the applicant would like to have the LED component for purposes of announcements, open houses, things relating to the business. The phone number is not that critical, because for the most part, when people see the open house and the information, they're going to come into the complex, correct?
Yeah.
And they'll learn that information.
That's true.
So, and if that's the case, then do you really require the 3 feet 8 inches? Because it's almost 4 feet tall. Your sign itself is 5 feet. And if it's one scrolling line that is giving out a message, do you need a 4 feet LED?
I think it needs to be, and obviously the architect and the planner are going to weigh in on this, but I think the thought process, we want it sufficiently large enough so that as cars, because there literally is very little signage detail here, so as cars are proceeding and may not know that the facility is located where it's at, we want it to be as far away on Texas Road so they're not creating a hazard issue.
See, I agree. But I agree, but we have to keep in mind that, one, this sign was granted a variance. When the application originally came in,
Sure.
you were allowed 2 signs. This sign was approved through a variance, and then now it is already a 5 feet high sign. We're adding 4 feet to
I
it.
think the applicant is open to talking about the dimensions. Maybe we ought to have the architect and the planner
Sure.
testify, and then we could talk about the height and the dimensions.
Okay.
I understand.
This is a picture of the sign.
No, we can't.
No, you can't
Yeah,
circulate.
that's okay, just don't worry about that, okay.
You can see from very far. So the sign itself, monument itself is very low. So if we make it more lower, the board won't be visible at all. And the whole purpose of putting a LED signage will be defeated. Like, it won't be seen at all if it's a lower one. But I'm sure the architect can
I
talk
agree.
more about it.
Okay, well, maybe we need to have further testimony so we better understand.
I think that would be appropriate. I guess our next witness will be our architect, Mr. Dorner. Yep. William Dorn, who was testified now before this board, but we'll have to obviously have him sworn in and qualified.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state and spell your name for the record, please.
William Doran, D-O-R-A-N.
Mr. Dorn, if you would,
I'm a registered architect here in the state of New Jersey since 1987. I testified in front of this board and many other boards in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mr. Dorn. Mr. Dorn, have you brought any exhibits with you this evening that have to be marked, that have
I
not
do.
already been submitted as part of this application? I believe so.
I think so.
Yes.
This is drawing A1.
Okay, so.
Part of the packet, yes.
What's that?
That's part of our packet.
Yeah, right. Okay, Mr. Dorn, if you would briefly describe the architectural plans for the proposed signage for the learning experience, and just explain, if you would, the various overall dimensions, and walk us through this, please?
Sure.
Okay.
So the existing monument sign is 9 foot long, going away from Texas Road. So perpendicular to Texas Road, the dimension is 9 feet. It's 5 feet high, and it is 1 foot 8 wide. As I said, it's a monument sign, so it's a masonry sign, brick on the perimeter, and then there is a inset where the learning experience sign is in there in a non-lit sign. What we're proposing to do is the LED sign above it is 3 foot 8 high, but I think the actual viewing area is more like 3 feet or 2 foot 10. So it's going to be a little less than almost 4 feet. It's a little less than that. And the perimeter of the sign is a metal, dark bronze metal, so it will look good on top of the existing monument sign. It is two-sided, so you'll see the information from both sides.
Let me ask you a question. What's your understanding in terms of what will be the overall increase of the sign, total signage, if the board approves the proposed LED sign? Do you know? In other
Square
words,
footage-wise?
Square footage.
I don't
I'm
have it, no.
Let me ask another way. So what is, you said the actual increase of the signage will be less than 4 feet?
Well, the frame from
Some
top to
wording.
Bottom.
bottom is 3'8".
Okay, fine.
And then
Right.
the LED component of it actually sits within that.
Right, okay. So the actual, so the frame is 3.8?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
But the actual signage is less than 3.8?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In your experience, do you believe that this is a sufficient sign area for this type of proposed signage to allow visibility coming down, for a vehicle coming down the
I do.
highway?
Given the location of the sign and the amount of traffic on the road, I do believe that, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Doran. I don't have any questions further of the architect unless the board does.
Yes, our planner.
I don't have any questions for him.
Question came up about the signage on the building, just so we're clear, on the existing building, there's a portico going into the building. So there's a gable roof with a sign, a learning experience sign on the top, and then on either side there are, on one side there's a square with numbers, and on the other, of the columns, and on the other side there's square with ABC.
Can you add the,
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
okay.
Ki-
Yes.
can you add the phone number underneath that sign, the wall sign?
Well, I think as Mr. Himmelman said, I'm not so sure that, I know our
Okay.
client said that the phone number was critical, but I don't think, I think we could all agree that we don't
Yeah,
really need the
nobody's
phone
going
number.
to.
Okay, so the total height of the sign is 9 feet, right?
Say.
With the
si-
addition-
88 feet 8 inches, right, to be precise?
Including the existing signage?
Right, right. And so when the ordinance allows you to have a 40 square feet sign, you have a 78, right? That's correct? So you're almost adding the same sign area as an additional monument sign on top, correct?
Or did you already do the math?
Yes.
Oh. I was gonna say, I probably don't
He's
exactly-
testing, he's testing.
And we have, so yes, it's almost done.
Right? That's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the facade sign lit up at night?
I don't know. The facade, the building sign, the, on.
On the building, yes, but
Does it have depth, so is it lit from behind, or is it lit down?
from behind, so like it has a light in it.
Thank you.
Is it an external light or is it internally illuminated? That's the question.
If I may guess, it would be internally, I think, there's lights in it.
Okay.
Mr. Lauer?
Mr. Duran,
Yes.
the colors on the sign, will it be a consistent contrasting colors? And do you know what the colors might be?
Well, I believe that I believe the background will be black, and that there are red, green, or yellow signage. So the lettering can be one of those 3 colors. So I think the intent is that as any one message is there, it would all be the same color.
But it could change from event to event?
It could.
Okay, my other question is, I understand what scrolling is. Could you explain animated to me? As far as the sign, you're looking for a variance for animated.
I don't think so. I think the intent is to have words.
Yeah, I think the ordinance reads that way, but we're not technically seeking that relief. It's really for the scrolling text.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the board? Yes, Mr. Lenny.
The speed limit on Texas roads 50 miles an hour. So if the car's doing 50, don't you think it's going to be difficult for them to see the scrolling text?
Well, I think the idea is not that it's going to scroll, and that was something that we wanted to talk to the board about, actually. So I think the sign has capabilities of, and I don't know 100%, but it can go quickly, or it can stay, have,
Static?
static for, thank you, for as long as we want it to. It can be programmed that way. So I think the idea, so if they're going to have an open house on Saturday, I think the idea is to leave it there for.
Leave it static?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, because the scrolling text concerns me, because people turning their head and
Right.
they're in the,
Right.
bouncing off the
It will
guardrails.
not be
Yeah, no,
scrolling every minute. No.
Okay,
I think my understanding is the technology of the signage, we can make it static,
Okay.
or they could make it from 20 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes. So it really depends on how the board feels. I agree with you that static would make sense for that, and for your example.
yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, and I would also like to, there is a sign, it's not similar in the way it's constructed, for a daycare center on 34 that has one of these LED signs. And I find it really distracting. It's high up, and I don't know, it's scrolling, and then it's got things flashing on it, and I don't know, it's not very consistent, and sometimes it's just dark, and I don't know, I think we'd really have to really be very specific as to how this thing was going to work, because I think, 34 is that's not 50 mile an hour, is it? People go 50 mile an hour.
Right around there.
Yeah, and it's just, it's distracting, because you're looking to see, is there a message there? Isn't there a message there? So I think there'd have to be some parameters put as to some kind of continuity as to when these things appear, how they're gonna.
And we're open to that. We're open to that.
Anybody else from the board have any? Okay, do you want to have your?
Yes. Next is James Higgins, who's our planner, thanks, Bill, who will testify on the variance justification. We'll have to have him sworn in and qualified, please.
From the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State and spell your name for the record, please.
James W. Higgins, Higgins.
Mr. Higgins, I'm sure you've testified before this board, among others, more than I want to add up.
More
If you-
than I want to add up.
Right.
Yeah,
If you
that's
want to
okay.
just briefly give your CV and your educational
Yeah,
background.
just give us your credentials.
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science and degree in Landscape Architecture from Rutgers University. I've been a licensed planner for approximately 40 years. I've testified
Okay.
before hundreds of boards throughout
Thank
the
you.
state. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins, my understanding is you've been retained by our client to sort of do an overview of the planning and zoning related issues. Have you not?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you're familiar with this site, correct?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
visited the site on a number of occasions.
Okay.
And I do know Texas Road. And I've reviewed the ordinance. I didn't see, for the sake of sign variance, looking at the master plan, I don't think the master plan really addresses signage in these areas. But I did look at your ordinance in detail. I reviewed the planner's report, and I looked at the plans, and I looked at the site and the existing signage on the site. I think the first thing to discuss to the board, this is a site, it's basically a strip mall with two buildings. One is the Learning Experience building, the other is a building with multiple retail and office-type uses in it. And it's still not fully rented out, but it appears that there would be like 13 to 14 total uses on the site. There are three freestanding signs on the site. There's two pylons, which is the Learning Experience pylon and the pylon that identifies just the shopping center at the north end, or at the western end of the shopping center. The eastern end of the shopping center has a freestanding sign that you could call it a pylon, you could call it a monument sign. It's sort of in between. It's a very attractive sign. But that also has the shopping center identification on it and a number of the stores that are located in the other building shown on that, as well as the identification of the rental agent and his phone number. That's what exists at the time. The learning experience sign is sort of towards the center of the shopping center, but a little bit more to the east. And it's actually in a row of shrubbery so that you can see it, but it's partially obscured by the shrubbery. And it's a 5-foot-high sign. It's not that easy to see, and as Mr. Lenning, said, there's traffic on Texas Road travels at a fairly good rate of speed, and it's difficult to see that sign. So the idea was for the applicant to put the LED sign on the top to actually make the Learning Center sign more visible, but also to be able to have text up there that would provide information to the public about both the business and, as has been discussed, if there's any emergency situations that the township needs to have displayed on the sign, that would also be shown on the sign from time to time when it was necessary. When I looked at your ordinance, there's a definition of animated display sign, and that says a sign with actions or motion, chasing, scintillating, flashing, color changing, requiring electrical energy, which is what the chairman was talking about with the other daycare center. And that's very distracting. It says, but not including wind-activated elements such as flags or banners, effects such as time and temperature, revolving, changeable copy, or public information displays are not included. I think what that's trying to say is that that's not to be, if it has those features, it's not to be considered an animated sign. So when I look at this sign with what's proposed, there was some discussion about scrolling, having moving text. That would probably also be an animated sign. But if the text doesn't move, if it's static and just changed periodically, it wouldn't be an animated sign. Your ordinance does prohibit signs. Another section, well, one section of your ordinance prohibits animated signs. Right. Okay. The second section of your ordinance prohibits signs with scrolling text. And to me, scrolling text means it's moving across the face of the sign. And again, I agree that on Texas Road, it would be very difficult to read that and to drive safely. But if this text was static, it would be readable and maybe changed every minute, every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the board felt was appropriate. But that's another section of your ordinance that prohibits scrolling text. And again, if the text isn't scrolled, that variance would not be necessary. With regard to sign area, your ordinance reads in the signage section, there's two sections. There's 250, 52D3, and then there's 250, 52D2, talking about sign area. On D3, it says for sites with 2 stores or less, the maximum sign area is 40 square feet. And if you have a corner lot, you can have a second sign that's half that. This is a corner lot, so you can have 2 signs on it. On 52D3, says that for sites with 3 stores or more, you can have a freestanding sign that is up to 125 square feet in area, provided you can have 10 square feet per store. So if you have 13 stores, you can have 125 square feet. Anything less than that, it would be 10 times the number of stores. This site appears to have 13 to 14 stores in it. So you would have a freestanding sign permitted that's 125 square feet, plus a second freestanding sign because it's a corner lot, which would be 67.5 square feet. Now, this site does have 3 signs. It has the freestanding sign, which is considerably less than the 125 square feet. It's about 75 square feet, I believe. And then you have a second second monument sign that's about half that size. What I did is I looked at, and then there's another provision in your ordinance that says schools. And when you read the definition of school in your ordinance, this is a school, because schools include pre-K. So this would be a school, and that schools can have 2 bulletin board signs up to 20 square feet each and 6 feet in height. So if you look at all of those provisions, the total square footage that would be permitted on the site would be 227.5 square feet. And when you look at what's proposed with the new sign, it would be 182.5 square feet. So in terms of sign clutter, overbearing appearance of the signs, what's being proposed here is less than what your ordinance would require, would permit, not require, but would permit. So I don't see there's a substantial negative impact in that regard. And I wanted to start off with the negative first before I got to the positive, because I think that's an important aspect of this application. So in terms of the benefits, I think there are three benefits. One is the existing sign is difficult to see when you're driving down. You can see it, but it's not really obvious, particularly because of the vegetation. If you put the LED sign on top of it, then it would become more visible and people would actually hone in on the LED and then see the Learning Center sign. So I think that's a benefit, particularly since the speed of traffic on Texas Road and the volume of traffic. I think having that sign more visible is definitely an improvement. I think it advances the purpose of the land use law regarding promoting the public health, safety, and general welfare. It's much less of a distraction if it's more visible. Second, I think the public welfare is advanced by the fact the applicant has agreed to put public emergency messages and other public information messages on that sign at no cost to the township. So I think that's another benefit. And then finally, I think the township, the ordinance recognizes there's a benefit to the public that results from schools having bulletin board signs. And that's really what this is a bulletin board sign for the school. So that information that can be projected regarding the operation of the school, any special events at the school, any other special things that might be happening or might be promoted by the school. So I think that's also a benefit. When I look at those and the fact that it's simply just adding a small sign on the top of an existing sign, I don't think there's any substantial detriment. So I think the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. I don't have any further questions. Mr. Board does.
Okay, planner, yep.
Yes. So I realize the necessity to have a LED sign to display events and open house, but I respectfully disagree with the analysis for the sign area, because we have to keep in mind that this development was approved, this monument sign through a variance. The project was allowed 2 monument signs, which they had, and then when the daycare came in, I think it was an amended site plan application, and at that time, this sign specifically was approved through a variance. The shopping center analysis, I don't think it applies here, only because this is kind of a pad site. And I have reviewed a lot of childcare applications. I've never compared it to a school. I do understand that they have their special needs when it comes to signage. I have done a lot of Lightbridge Academy reviews for various townships, and I know that they need a wall sign, they need a monument sign, they also need these LED signs to advertise events and stuff like that. And I'm not challenging that. My concern is the height of the sign, because especially since there are already 2 other signs, I have always said this to the board, that our signage ordinance is a little weak and we need to work on it. But from what we have right now, we already have 2 monument signs that are tall. Adding the LED sign makes this sign have a total height of almost 9 feet. If it's going to have a stationary text, I would really want the applicant to consider if the height can be shrunk a little bit. The scrolling text, I think by now we all agree that some of it can be stationary. You really don't need to have the scrolling text. So I'm not really against the LED sign. It's just the size and what really goes on. And I think what is important needs to be displayed, but something, like I said, the phone number could go somewhere else. You don't need to flash it on the LED sign. So that's basically what I have to say on the sign.
I think one of the concerns with the existing sign, which Mr. Higgins was referring to out on Texas Road, I think it's fairly low to the ground. So it is, so I think the concern is it's difficult to see that signage as you're coming, approaching, within some reasonable distance, which is why I think the applicant's looking for, and I understand you're not necessarily opposed to the intent and purpose of the LED sign itself. I mean, I think the concern about the sign area, I think Mr. Higgins has indicated that because this is, he believes within a school and therefore is allowed additional bullet signage, I think there may just be sort of a disagreement. And I understand that when the Woodhaven came in and got this amended site plan, I'm not sure I wasn't here then, I'm not sure if that issue was raised when they got the variance for the sign. I'm not sure. But I think what Mr. Higgins is saying, I don't think, and Jim, I'll let you weigh in on this.
Yes.
From what you've testified to, the sign area here is maybe not as great a disparity as we're at least discussing
That's basically
here.
what I'm saying, is when you look at your ordinance and you see what's permitted for this type of site, and when I calculated the total sign area, I calculated the total area of the learning experience monument sign, including the monument base, which when you read your ordinance, technically that should be excluded from the calculation, but I included that. And I think the point I was trying to make is that the total area of the signage is not out of character, it's not inconsistent with what the intent of your ordinance is, which is why I use that as part of the negative criteria, not part of the positive criteria. What the intent of your ordinance is on this site or any other site. And regardless of what the prior approvals were respectively, it's really what your ordinance, the council envisioned when they developed the sign portion of your ordinance. And as far as whether this is a school or not, I think you have to read your definition of school private. And it says, from pre-kindergarten through grade 12. This is pre-kindergarten. So by your definition of your ordinance, it is a school. And I will also concede that I don't think the ordinance ever envisioned a school and a shopping center when it had the provision for monument signs, or for bulletin board signs. And I think that there's a lot in your ordinance that does need to be updated. I totally agree with that. But what I'm trying to point out here is that what is being proposed here makes sense. And like, I have a picture looking at the sign going westward, and you can see how it's partially obscured by the vegetation, the existing sign. I took a picture for going eastbound of the sign. You can't see the sign. So I decided not to print it out because it just didn't make sense showing a picture of a sign when there's no sign there. The vegetation obscures the sign if you're going eastbound on Texas Road till you get almost opposite the sign. And then you can see it. So having something that would go above that sign to draw attention to it so people would see it, I think is an important thing.
Chairwoman Cannon, can I make a suggestion? We'd like an opportunity to talk to your planner for a few minutes about dimensions and overall height and size. Would you have an issue if we could take a few-minute break, or?
You have a problem? Okay,
Thank you. We'll be less than 10 minutes.
okay.
Okay, thank you. With your planner, but I don't know if the board has any questions, or I could just describe to you what we sort of have discussed.
You can, and then we'll have her confirm that what you're
Okay,
telling us is
that's
right.
fine. What the applicant discussed with your planner is to reduce the dimensions of the proposed LED sign from actually a foot less. And that all announcements, open houses, things of that nature would scroll text at intervals that would be acceptable to the board. All other announcements would be static.
And there would be just one line of print?
I guess there would be,
Are we having paragraph, or what are we having?
Right now there was 4. I'll have to
I think it is 3 lines with the third line, the bottommost line that scrolls. Everything else is stationary.
That's right. I'm sorry, you're right, Jody, yes.
Okay, but I mean, there's just two lines of print or 3 lines? or
3 lines of print.
3?
First 2 are static. The problem is since the height has reduced by 1 inch, originally 1 foot, originally there were 4 lines of text.
Cutting one.
That's too much. I mean, I just, anyway, okay, so now it's down to 3 with 2 static and 1 scrolling?
Yes.
Correct.
And what is it going to say on the 2 lines? It's going to be childcare and the age group? And that takes 2 lines?
Do you really need to say childcare? Because you already have the learning experience logo, right?
Based on the time of the year, I could change that because it's programmable. But I'll keep it static to what requirement you're asking.
And do you absolutely need to say 6 months to 6 years?
Yes, because that was my big signage which used to say childcare facility 6 weeks to 6 years. That was the only thing which used to say what age group we are in. So now if we don't, that's the part which is missing at this point.
And you can't add that under the wall sign?
There is no space for me anywhere. I don't have any place to put any information. So if I'm going for a board, I go for an LED sign, which I could program based on the need of the time at that time in the year, basically. We do kindergarten also. It's a school, it's a preschool. We have pre-K, we have kindergarten. So during back to school time, we promote kindergarten. During other times, we promote the infant care, So based on the need of the year, we will, change the message. But I do need some space because I'll be limited if I don't have at least 3 lines.
Okay, I don't know, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
What is the scrolling text will be? So,
Childcare 6 weeks to 6
well,
years
that's
will
the
be
static.
minimum.
That's the static 2 lines.
Minimum, yes.
But I'm talking about the scrolling one.
We could write a positive message, we could write, there are so many, it's a school, so based on, I could write different things on this.
I thought that was only for events that you needed for.
No, basically, if there is no event going on, then I could just say, welcome to the new school year, like we had now back to school. So we would say, welcome to the new year. Or we would say, we have event coming up, or we have trunk or treat coming. Every month I host an event actually. We have a
Mr. Luca, did you have something?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I think most would be directed towards the applicant. I was just wondering, so Learning Center is essentially a franchise, correct?
yes.
Are you in communication with other learning centers that are in operation? Do any of other of them have this type of signage? Is this something that's mandated by the franchise, or does the franchise leave the actual signage requirements up to the individual owners?
No, they have some learning experiences have a second board in place, but we were told to remove the temporary big board, which was actually a great board, which stated what we do. That temporary board had to be removed completely. So I don't have any place to put that information. Certain centers have that information, 2 boards in their schools.
Okay, so in other words, essentially what I was asking is if all learning centers designate the age groups for them, and your answer is that some of them do.
Yes, they mostly do, yeah.
In your opinion, in terms of marketing, and I know this is not a planning thing so much, but it would seem to me, do you really think that street signage would have a bigger impact than social media presence and things like that? It seems as though if you're running frequent events, like, do you have a robust?
Social media already.
But are you
Yeah, we do.
necessarily advertising your events on your Facebook page?
Yes, we do. The social media is already being used. However, if I give you the ratio of the people who come in for tours, 80% is walk-in tours. That comes to drive-by. So if I have a message which really talks about my signage, they'll be able to actually see it while they are driving. And then 20% to 30% comes from social media, and they look up online and they come in.
Okay, because it seems as though if you are having things that are tailored to the current body and you're having events that children that are currently in attendance can attend, you had mentioned that there is an event this Saturday. Is that currently posted on social media?
Yeah, we use Old Bridge Parents, we try, but mostly on our webpage, we promote it.
Okay, so on your webpage, not necessarily on social media? Okay, so my point is essentially that, like, it does seem as though that there are other marketing.
Yeah, we explore everything.
Pathways to explore.
We explore everything, whatever, but I feel that drive-by is one of the most effective ways in our township. For us, it has worked the most, because major leads come from drive-by. They just drive, when they drive, they look or through word of mouth, yeah.
Is the landlord responsible for maintaining the lot? Have you broached trimming the bushes back with the landlord of the property? I'm a little bit confused about if the bushes are obstructing the sign that much. How come nobody's talked about?
See the picture, it's very much it's in the back. The sign is so small that you can't see the big board for Woodhaven actually obstructs, like your eyes will be driven towards the big board, but towards the small signage. That's the reason we were
With
looking.
all respect, everybody is referring to the picture that we don't have, so that's a little bit difficult to see.
Correct,
And,
yes.
I hear at one point it's the bushes obstructing and the Woodhaven
Correct,
sign, so
yes.
it's a little.
We can have that marked and have you take a look at that. I can mark, or Dawn can mark it. A1.
I did the photo of the existing.
Yeah, it's a photo of the existing monument sign and the existing learning experience sign, I guess, on Texas Road in front of the property. We could circulate that, have everybody look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's being passed around. Does anybody else have any comment? Yeah. Mr. Lauer and then Mr. Masucci.
Should the Learning Center move, let's say, to a different location, would that sign, this might be a question for our professional, would that sign, LED sign, stay with the building, or would the next person?
The LED sign is associated with the business, so yes. So if the business moves out, the LED sign really comes out.
Okay, thank you.
So it would not stay with the building? No. Okay. Mr. Marucci?
I think that would have to be a condition of your approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, the sign.
Yeah.
That's pretty
the sign
high.
would say
How
on
could it
some
be
of the
hidden by
permits,
bushes?
Just come in and change the wording on the sign, so we would need to make that a condition if we wanted that.
Right.
Correct.
Because you would make a decision based on this business. That's correct.
I see, looking at Google Satellite, that is Texas Road and Murray Drive. But the building is set back, it looks to be probably 150 feet off of Texas and Murray as well. And there appears to be another building pad, which is technically in the corner, the front corner
Okay.
of that lot. So the learning experience is not technically on the corner of the lot, it would be building pad.
Well, the lot is a corner lot, and the ordinance refers to the entire lot, so it'd be all the buildings on the lot would be included there. So it is a corner lot.
It's kind of a gray area, though, being that the learning experience is situated so far back and away from both Texas and Murray, and the other lot is more
Yeah,
tucked
but-
into the
but-
corner.
Just the way the
no,
building
But
is
the issue
situated.
is, the way the ordinance is structured, the site would be permitted 2 freestanding signs, One, and this is again based on your ordinance, not based on the prior approvals, just to be clear. One would be, if it's a corner lot and more than three, we'll say more than 12 stores, it would be permitted 125 square foot freestanding sign, and then a second 67.5 square foot freestanding sign. And it doesn't matter where the buildings are situated or how many of them there are.
Okay, so by that criteria, the Trattoria Ravello.
Okay, so it's for an additional sign, not for the size.
Would all fall under
And,
that
yeah,
same ordinance.
and we-
That's correct. And that's when you look at the picture that's going around that shows that freestanding sign with all of those listed,
Yeah.
those businesses listed on that large freestanding sign. It
Right.
doesn't show the other monument sign at the other end of the shopping center, which just has, it's a smaller monument sign, probably about 6 feet high, my recollection serves me right, and it just has the name of the shopping center on it.
Okay, so then nothing would prevent all of those businesses then coming in and applying for a digital sign as well?
Yes, they don't have a monument sign to put it on. They would have to come in for a whole new sign, not just in addition to an existing sign.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Mr. Lenny.
In the corner of the site, the 5,000 square foot building, that's going to be permitted a sign, correct?
Not a freestanding sign, no. It would just be permitted a building sign, a facade sign.
And they would be able to add the photo shows there's squares and placards, so there'd be a spot to add their name to the existing freestanding sign of the corner. A1 shows that there's at least 2 or 3 empty squares left on
So now the reasoning that the learning experience was permitted a freestanding sign is because they are a freestanding building as opposed to the strip mall? Is that why they received
They did that, as they correctly said, that was was an amendment to the previously approved plan.
Correct.
They came in with that, I believe it was actually the builders that came in with the application, but they did have the client online to take over the space if approved. So they came in to change that shopping center. I think it was originally all going to be straight across. And it's to cut part of that off to make this freestanding building and to put in a daycare center. So as part of that, they then said, can we also have a sign specifically for this at the end?
That's correct.
Yes.
So with the approval of this sign, we wouldn't be reducing the availability for the sign for the building that's not constructed yet?
Not the
I'm not
wall
so
sign.
sure.
Well, the building, the pad site at the corner, there's what, a 5,000 square foot space that's approved. They would be able to have a wall sign. And they would be able to have their
Their
names
name on there.
added to the existing
But
sign.
no other freestanding
And I think
sign.
part of the thing here is, we were talking about a corner property. The idea of a corner property having additional signs usually means one of the signs goes on the other street. Right now, we've got the 3 signs
That's
on
correct.
on
But
Texas
that-
Road.
Again, that's a weakness in your ordinance.
Right,
there.
right. But as you said, I drive past this all the time, so just like, if we don't have a photo of it, but the sign at the farthest end, closest to the Wawa side of Texas Road, that is just it's a monument sign, and it just says it does just say the name, Texas Plaza on it. That
Correct.
doesn't have any business signs.
Correct.
So that's kind of small, and it marks that driveway. So the photo that they brought us is the one big sign with lots of names on it.
Okay, can we just review where we are now? So you've agreed to lower the sign by a foot,
Height of the sign by 1 foot.
by 1 foot?
And we're looking for for the ability to display, 3 lines. And I guess to address that a little more closely, 2 would be static, and the third would be scrolling, but it would be intermittent. It wouldn't be constant. It would be depending on if it's a special event, if there's a public announcement. So really, there's 2 static lines with 1 scrolling on the bottom, which may occur, infrequently, I guess is a good way to put it.
And the 2 static lines are just going to remain lit the whole time? I mean, they're not going to go off and on, or?
That's my understanding, yes.
And that's the one that's just going to have the information, which you need 2 lines for, to say that it's from ages 6 months to 6 years? So you need 2 lines for that. And what about colors? Because some,
Like, if you see any of my flyers, it has few things: infant care, preschool, full-time kindergarten, and aftercare. These are the 4 things we do there. Infant care, preschool, before and aftercare, and full-time kindergarten.
You're going to put all that on there?
No, I won't put all this, but
No,
the 6
obviously.
weeks to 6 years sums up everything. So that's what it is.
And colors, I mean, I don't know, do they have?
In the illumination color part,
Yeah, because somebody brought up maybe it shouldn't be red or green because there's a traffic light near there.
Well, maybe somebody, professionals want to give an opinion if it's far enough to not be an issue, or,
we're open to that. I don't think you have a preference.
Yeah, as long as it's bright to be seen, I don't have an
I-
issue, a problem. And this is a completely programmable signage. So what you would permit, we'll be okay with that. And we won't flash, like,
Yeah.
that's not the intention.
I have
I'm-
an additional.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, in cases of township notifications, would that then be posted on that third scrolling line?
Yes.
No, yeah, I mean,
Yes.
if
Okay.
you need, if you need the full thing, I can do that also. I don't have a problem.
And then would there be, I was just wondering, like, I don't know if this would be considered a condition, but if there was an instance, like, obviously the town wouldn't want to hijack the sign, but if there was an event coming up versus like an Amber Alert, just, it might be worthwhile clarifying, like, what gets precedence if that's being presented as a positive condition.
For example, if there were a superstorm Sandy,
Yeah.
and we had power there at that location, yeah, we could certainly, if there are emergency public announcements that township police, et cetera, would ask, we certainly, I don't think the applicant would have any objection to taking that, the total 100% precedent.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, do you want to read the? Did you have anything to add?
so the applicant is requesting approval of a now revised 8-foot 8-inch high sign? 7-foot 8.
7 foot
7
8.
foot 8
Correct.
inch.
Which includes the existing monument
Right.
sign, plus the proposed LED sign, yes.
Somebody will calculate for me that new area that before, I have to write that down. And the sign will have, the new portion of the sign will have 3 lines of text. The first top 2 to stay static, the third one to be scrolling. The applicant has agreed to allow emergency notices from the police, OEM, and related entities to be placed on the sign as appropriate to the emergency.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
Correct. And would agree to have precedent for for total signage availability. If there was
Okay, if it was really,
an
yeah.
emergency, basically the advertising for the business would no longer be there as long as the emergency existed.
In event of a public emergency, they
Correct.
could
Public
have access to the
emergency,
total
correct.
sign. Okay.
Correct, which I think is helpful for the variance.
Okay, right. The, I'm just thinking about the colors. I'm sorry?
It says one single color.
Yeah, one single color, at least one at a time on the sign, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Can we have static message with one color and scrolling a different color, or, because that would,
I think you have to be careful, because if you have like red and green, it could be really,
whatever you from.
I mean, I don't
format,
know
as
what
long as
colors
it's
come in.
bright also.
I mean, do any of the professionals have concern that it's too close to the traffic light? I think the larger sign is.
The ordinance says that within 100 feet you cannot have red.
Red or green, and I think the larger sign probably would block it from view from the intersection, so the color, the red and green should not be an issue, right?
Yeah, I'll just read it out.
Okay.
Signs using red, yellow, amber, or green lights placed within 100 feet of any traffic signal or any intersection where sight distance is inadequate is prohibited.
Okay.
so is it an issue or not?
It's far enough away, it looks.
Oh, it's far enough away, it's not a problem.
Can you specify what is the time within which it will change? Because I know you said anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes,
We will go with what the board recommends on that, whatever you feel comfortable. We can program it for as, I think as least as 20 seconds up to 2 or 3 minutes, right, Jody?
The only reason I'm asking is because under the prohibited signs, where the scrolling text
1 minute.
it says that less than 1 minute
Right.
is prohibited.
Correct.
So if it is going to be more than 1 minute, you might not meet that variance.
Correct.
So if you could clarify,
A minute and a half.
Can,
it's going to be less than 1
What about a minute and a half?
if more than 1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll agree to more than 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Will there be a time at night when it would go off? It's on,
I think so. I don't believe so. I think it's illuminated.
on 24 hours?
like during daytime, won't be.
Plus, I think if there's a public emergency, I think you want it on.
Mr. Schmidt has a question.
Does the Woodhaven approval include the possibility of a traffic light at Murray Drive?
It's already, it's not active, it's there already.
Already there.
So that does not interfere with that.
That's what I'm saying, it's, I
One
think it's far
question.
enough.
So they do stop, so they would be able to read the signage if it's scrolling at that level.
No, but I mean, they wouldn't confuse it.
No, we're thinking it's far enough, and from this, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But let's just go back to the colors. What was the consensus, just one color at a time?
That's what we talked about.
One color at a time?
Yeah, I think one color. Otherwise, it's too distracting.
One color at a time. All right, so 3 lines, the reduced height, we're going to get the area. 3 lines of text, the top 2 static, 1 color at a time. The timing, it won't scroll more often than 1 minute. And it is permitted to be on 24 hours. And it will be specific to this business owner and be removed if this business owner vacates the property.
But
Kelly?
The question-
I think we may want to say the use, right, as opposed to the, because if it's right, or,
at what?
Would the board be okay with any daycare center if they sold it to another company that ran a daycare center there, with leaving the LED sign in that case? So that the LED sign would be specific to a daycare use, not to the learning experience.
Would all the same conditions still apply?
With all the same conditions?
yes.
Yeah, it'd
correct.
have to be the same.
The resolution would run with the approval.
Board okay with that?
Okay. I just want to add one more thing, that I know signage is a big deal, and I know it's important to you, but believe me, having been around for many, many years, the more signs, it gets like you just zone them out after it, you know? So I'm not saying this won't, serve your purpose, but it's not the be-all and end-all, and I think take up Mr. Lucas' thing that you need to use other ways of promoting your business and not just, the sign isn't going to make the whole thing. Anyway,
Thank you.
24 square feet is the new additional sign area.
The original like deed was 45, and then the 24.
okay, do we have a motion?
To approve the request with the conditions stated.
Thank you.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Lauer, is there a second?
A second.
Second, your second? Okay. Mr.
Mr.
Russ.
Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Romackis?
Abstain.
Mr. Schmidt?
No.
Mr. Lane?
No.
Mr. Morici?
No.
Mr. Luca?
No.
Chairman Hannan?
No.
5 no, 2 no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No. We're sorry. What was the vote?
5-2, they lost.
No, we're going to talk about it. No.
Okay, is there anything else? There is a motion to be adjourned?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Lauer. Is there a second? All in favor?
You betcha.
Okay.